This story begins with a longtime criminal named Robert Berger. Ever since he was a young adult, he'd been in and out of jail a numerous amount of times. His criminal history consists of aggravated robbery, aggravated kidnapping, convictions to burglary, vehicle theft, drug, and numerous fleeing police violations. And speaking of numerous fleeing police violations, he was oftentimes highly successful evading police. Berger had served nearly 14 years in prison prior to being paroled in June of 2014, but he had returned to state custody several times since for parole violations. This led to Berger being sent to the Fortitude Treatment Center. The Fortitude Treatment Center was a facility that allowed struggling offenders to remain in the community under parole supervision rather than return to prison. When a parolee violates certain conditions of his parole agreement, adult probation and parole agents may recommend the parolee be placed in this program. Parolees can leave to look for work, go to work, attend school, or see family. Now this right here was most certainly not a good idea for somebody like Robert Berger, because this dude had a very long rap sheet. I mean, dude was committing crime in his teens, and this man was in his 40s. So there was no way that this dude was about to just walk the streets and live like a normal human being. So placing him in this program would definitely lead to something very bad happening. And just to show you guys how mentally unstable and crazy Robert Berger was, we're gonna have to travel back to 15 years earlier to the year 2000, where he would commit his most serious offense. Back in the year 2000, when Robert Berger was in jail in Salt Lake City, he would deliberately injure his arm to get a doctor's visit. Now, one thing about Robert Berger is that he was a pretty smart dude. And like I said before, he was very good at evading police. So this was a perfect opportunity for him to try and make an escape. One of the procedures that Berger would have to undergo while visiting the doctor was getting an x-ray. But before they started to give him an x-ray, the police officer that assisted the nurse would unlock Berger from all of his chains, and the nurse also told Berger to remove his shirt so that she'll be able to perform the x-ray. Now, in order for the doctor to perform the x-ray, she and everybody else would have to leave the room to prevent radiation. Berger knew this and used this as his chance to escape. Once the nurse and the police officer relieved the room, Berger would quickly flee from the doctor's office and head outside and hop in a car that was already running. What Berger didn't know was that there was a 49-year-old woman in the back seat, and the car also belonged to her son-in-law. Her son-in-law had stepped out the car for a minute to retrieve something from the doctor's office, and he had left the car running. And all you can really say about this is that this was just bad timing. Now, when Berger would get in the car, the police would follow right behind him with their guns drawn. But by Berger being the semi-intelligent criminal, he would know that the police wouldn't fire at him because there was a hostage in the back seat. So this gave Berger the okay to flee the scene. Now, while Berger was driving in order to flee the scene, the 49-year-old woman was terrified. She didn't know who this man was, why he hopped in her son-in-law's car, like she was just in awe in the situation. And as she was terrified, she began to ask Robert, what does he want? Robert would then constantly tell her to shut up and follow all his orders. Berger would soon stop at a convenience store with the 49-year-old woman still in the car, and he would demand her to get up in the front seat. When she got to the front, Berger would quickly demand money in order for him to get a pack of cigarettes. Now, the funny thing about this exchange is when he continued to ask the woman for money, she would constantly remind him that she really doesn't have any, because when she would finally reach in her pocket to give Robert some money, it would only be $2. He would then look at the woman and say, "This all you got?" And she was like, "Yeah, like I wasn't planning on staying out all day. Like my son-in-law picked me up and we was just gonna make one stop and that was it. I wasn't about to just grab all my cash for no reason. Shoot, I threw some clothes on and whatever was in the pocket was whatever was in the pocket." Like this dude was acting like she knew that he was about to steal her son-in-law car today. Like, boy, I don't know you. Like maybe you should have called me and I would have been more prepared. But this wouldn't be the only thing Robert would demand the woman to give him, as he didn't have any clothes to go and purchase the cigarettes. He still had on his prison pants and was shirtless, and he knew for a fact if he would have went up there and got the cigarettes, they were gonna look at him crazy, and they were also gonna probably call the police. So this led to Robert demanding the woman to give him some clothes to wear, and she would reach in the back seat and hand Robert her work clothes. Her work clothes consisted of a button-up top and a dress. But did y'all think that this would stop this man from putting this on? Absolutely not. Because once she handed Robert Berger her work clothes, he would quickly put them on. And as soon as he put them on, he would then go and purchase his cigarettes. Now, if this woman wasn't terrified before, man, she definitely terrified now, because just based off of this action right here, it wasn't no telling what this man was gonna do next. If he's willing to do this, what else is he willing to do? And one crazy thing about all of this is that the woman had plenty of times to escape, because Berger didn't tie her up to anything as he went to go get cigarettes, so she could have easily just got out the car and ran. But the reason why she didn't run was because she was afraid of what Robert Berger might do to her. After he got his cigarettes, he would then drive for 4 hours, and surprisingly he didn't physically harm the woman in any way. I mean, he didn't hit her, slap her, spit on her, tie her up, or nothing. And all I gotta say about this is that that's a blessing in itself. I mean, at least he wasn't crazy enough to actually harm the woman. But eventually his luck would run out as the vehicle would run out of gas. This led to the police tracking them down in a nearby area, which led to Berger's arrest. And thankfully the woman wasn't physically harmed in any way, but she would most certainly be mentally scarred for the rest of her days, because I don't know how anybody can forget about this. I mean, a random dude just hopping up in your car, driving away. You don't know what this man gonna do? I'm pretty sure that this still bothers her till this day. And Robert Berger, you are a crap human being for that. But once Berger was arrested, he would plead guilty to first-degree felony aggravated robbery and was sentenced to prison for up to life. Berger ended up staying in prison from September of 2000 until June of 2014 when he was paroled. And this brings us back to the year 2015, in which Robert Berger is a parolee at the Fortitude Treatment Center. Now, the scary thing about the Fortitude Treatment Center is that they would actually set up houses in peaceful neighborhoods in order to try to reform these violent criminals. Like, who in the world thought that this was a good idea? Like, this man Robert was just insane. The man fled police plenty of times, robbed, stole, and you just gonna set this man up in a peaceful, quiet neighborhood where he get to basically have a field day? What kind of nonsense is this? This would lead to the facility basically setting up a house so that Robert Berger can live in order to change his life around. But just a few houses down, 27-year-old Bree Lasley and her 22-year-old sister Kaylee are moving into a new home. They were both super excited about their new home as they were both attracted to the downtown scene. I mean, here you got two young girls basically coming up in the world by purchasing their very own home, starting a new life with just happy memories up ahead. But what the sisters didn't know is that a few miles away, Robert Berger was also moving in a house set up by the Fortitude Treatment Center, which supposedly had very tight restrictions. Yeah, right. Robert Berger wasn't under any surveillance, and he was not being closely watched by anyone, which meant that he had the ability to roam wherever he wanted and do whatever he wanted. Robert Berger began roaming the streets in a neighborhood that's usually quiet and peaceful. And a few houses down from Bree and Kaylee's place was a small family of three, a man, a woman, and small child. Robert Berger's first attempt was to break in this home. Thankfully, the man of the house heard all the ruckus, and he entered the kitchen and saw Berger. Berger attempted to grab a hammer, but the man was able to knock it out of his hands. This led to Berger still trying to attempt to break into the home through the kitchen window. But amazingly, the man's wife would come into the kitchen with a lamp and she would begin jousting it at Berger, leading to him fleeing the scene. Now, man, how dope was that? Bruh, now that's how you fight off a burglar, you heard me? The girl went and got a lamp and was like, boy, get your goof ass, get your goof ass out of here, boy. You ain't about to break in my crib, sir, with his dumb ass. Fled like a whole mark, bro. She was probably beating the crap out that dude. He was like, man, I can't take this. But as soon as they were finished fighting off Robert, the couple would then call the police and inform them on what happened. And another awesome thing about this is that the couple's 2-year-old daughter, who was in her bedroom, was not at all harmed. But once the family told the police what happened, the police were then on high alert that a burglar was lurking around the peaceful neighborhood. One of the officers that will be notified about this incident was Officer Ben Hone, as he patrolled the neighborhood throughout the night. Back at the sister's residence, Bree would decide to go lie down in her room, and she would open up her window to catch a breeze. While leaving her window open provided easy access for Robert Berger. As Bree was lying down in her bed, she would look up and see a man climbing through a window. Now see, the good thing about Bree and her sister is that they were fighters. I mean, the other house she tried to break into, that woman was a fighter. And plus you got these women who are fighters too. Like, Honestly, man, there was no hope for this dude, because as soon as he would break into Bree's room, they would get into a tussle. But in the midst of their tussle, Robert would tell her to cooperate or he'll go get her little sister. This made Bree realize that he's been watching them for days. But ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, like I said before, this wasn't your typical victim story. As Bree was able to break free from Robert, her little sister would then wake up from all the commotion, and when she saw Robert standing in their living room, she would immediately start fighting him. Man, let me tell y'all something. The little sister was really a fighter. I mean, she was throwing bowls at this man, scratching him, trying to bite him, all that. Like, they was not about to let this dude victimize them. But as they would tussle with Robert Berger, this quickly led to the big sister charging at him, which led to them all stumbling down the stairs. When they all got up, the tussling would begin again. He had Bree and her little sister in his arms as they struggled to break loose. All while they were trying to break loose, Bree had her phone on a strap, and she tried immensely to try to contact the police through Siri. Siri couldn't recognize her commands, so she then decided to yell out, "Call Dad." He realized what the girls were trying to do, and he ended their phone call by stepping on the phone, breaking it. After this, the girls were hopeless. This led to them resorting back to physically handling the situation. As they were fighting Robert, he would soon shout out that he's going to kill them both. But the little sister wasn't having it, as she responded by saying, "No, we're gonna kill you." She was a straight gangster. But during the continuous tussle, Robert would then pull out a knife, which stopped both the sisters in their tracks. This then led to Bree telling her little sister to run, as she felt like Robert had won the battle. It took some convincing to get her sister to leave, as she still wanted to stay and fight. She was just a down little sister, you know what I'm saying? As soon as her little sister would begin to leave, Robert began stabbing Bree multiple times. Bree kept telling Kaylee to run and go get help, even as she was being stabbed. Kaylee would then run outside screaming throughout the neighborhood that a man is stabbing her sister. Thankfully, Officer Ben Home was still patrolling the area, and he would hear Kaylee's screams. Kaylee would quickly point him to the direction of the house, and he entered with caution. As he made his way to the downstairs area, he heard a struggle going on. He would quickly inform his presence by saying, "This is the Salt Lake City Police." As he continued on this path, he would be introduced to Robert holding Bree hostage. Bree and Robert were both on the floor, and he had Bree in a rear naked chokehold. Robert was behind Bree with his arms wrapped around her neck and his legs wrapped around her body. The officer quickly realized that the woman was in complete distress, and he could also vividly see that she had stab wounds. He also saw that Robert had a knife by her throat, and he quickly demanded Robert to drop the knife. Robert would then raise the knife as if he was going to stab her. Robert looked at the officer and told the officer that he's going to kill her. The officer then waited for the right moment in which Robert would move his head to the side, and the officer would quickly take his shot. The officer struck Robert in the head, killing him instantly. The shot was 1 inch away from Bree's head, and she thankfully didn't feel the effects of the gunshot. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is how the story ends. Now, I'm really happy to tell y'all this one, because this guy got smoked. He got a headshot, and he deserved a headshot. You know what I'm saying? So I just want to say great police work to my boy Officer Ben Home. Like, you saved these sisters, and if you actually watched the episode of the TV show Your Worst Nightmare, the oldest sister Bree also thanked Officer Ben Home for saving her life. But to be perfectly honest, the sisters also saved their lives as well, because they were willing to actually put up a fight, and I just find that to be super dope. Like, they just weren't about to let this man come into their home and try to manhandle them. Like, they actually stood up and would actually fight this dude. Like, that's straight up gangster if you ask me. But anyway, after Robert Berger was killed, the Fortitude Treatment Center will become under heavy fire, because it was 100% their fault on why that boy Robert Berger was just out and about. Like, this dude should have been behind bars. He spent most of his life in and out of prison. Obviously, he loved prison. Like, keep that man in there. But I'm glad that this story ended how it did, with him having a bullet in his dome. But like I said, the Fortitude Treatment Center will become under heavy fire, and I honestly can't find any information on if this program is still up and running. And if it is still up and running, hopefully they got more stricter over the years, because this was just crazy. And this story right here is also still pretty recent. I mean, 2015, it's not that long ago. So y'all gonna have to get your act together, the Fortitude Treatment Center, for real, because I know damn well I don't want no criminals like Robert Berger living in my neighborhood, for sure. But anyway, guys, that's the end of the video. I don't think that this one was too scary. I mean, maybe it was in the beginning, but hey, got a happy ending out of this one. So y'all can probably go to bed peacefully tonight. But all in all, I'm gonna catch y'all on the next one. GB signing out.